And tonight on The Wrap, in the wake of the Amtrak disaster, was the accident preventable? And will more taxpayer money prevent future accidents, or is it time for the government to get out of the railroad business? The 2016 presidential race continues to heat up as Senator Marco Rubio has some harsh words for Hillary Clinton. We have the tape. And are comments President Obama made about Senator Elizabeth Warren sexist? A prominent Democratic senator thinks so. Wait till you hear why. We've got all that, plus potluck and yay and nay. This is the Daily Wrap, live from New York City. And welcome to the show, everybody. I'm Joe Concha, joined by Sirius XM radio host, columnist for Forbes.com, my co-host, Rick Unger.
That would be me.
That's
yes.
him.
Yeah.
And to his right, she is here almost every night, Philly attorney and America's pundit, Heather Hansen. And finally, he's a rabbi, he's an author, and he's the editor of the Wisdom Daily. Brad Hirschfield is back once again. Welcome, sir.
Good to be here.
Lots to do tonight, everybody. Let's get right to the daily download. Please. Well, it's been 2 days now since an Amtrak train headed to New York flew off the tracks, killing 8 and injuring hundreds. Philly Mayor Michael Nutter announced that all the passengers had been accounted for.
All of the individuals that we believe that we were looking for or were trying to identify have all now been accounted for. Unfortunately, again, we must now report that we have confirmed 8 deceased from this horrible tragedy.
Now, questions still remain over why the train was reportedly traveling over 100 miles per hour, twice the speed limit allowed in that section of railway. Engineer Brandon Bostain's attorney appeared on Good Morning America to discuss what his client remembers.
I believe as a result of the concussion, he has absolutely no recollection whatsoever of the events. I'm told that his memory is likely to return as the concussion symptoms subside.
Host George Stephanopoulos, who we'll be talking about a little bit later, asked Bostain what he remembers, if anything.
He remembers coming into the curve. He remembers attempting to reduce speed. Thereafter, he was knocked out, thrown around just like all the other passengers in that train.
So he remembers deploying the emergency brake?
He does not remember deploying the emergency brake. We know that it was, in fact, deployed. The last thing he recalls is coming to, looking for his bag, getting his cell phone, turning it on, and calling 911.
Now, the disaster has resulted in plenty of finger-pointing from Washington during an unrelated appropriations meeting on Amtrak funding that just happened to be scheduled one day after the crash. Congressman Steve Israel from New York suggested that a pullback on congressional funding of Amtrak is what led to the accident.
They expect us to watch over their safety when they get on trains, when they're on planes, when they're in cars and highways. And last night we failed them. We failed to invest in their safety. We failed to make their safety a priority. What we should have been doing is subsidizing the safety of those passengers on that Amtrak train yesterday. And so this is just a matter of simple priorities.
Now, Congressman Mike Simpson, a Republican, called out Israel for exploiting the situation.
You have no idea what caused this accident. And to use that as a means of supporting the last amendment, support it if you want to. But don't use this tragedy in that way. It was beneath you.
Now, Amtrak, which is government subsidized, costs the American taxpayer roughly $1.5 billion per year. But President Obama has asked for an increase of over $2 billion a year. Is more money the answer? Is it time for the government to get out of train travel? Is there a simpler solution to making train travel safer? Rick, let's start with you. You had a very compelling argument last night, hard to disagree with, as far as putting more money into infrastructure, but borrowing to invest and making sure that the money just isn't thrown at the problem. Is Amtrak, in this situation, the best steward? as far as that plan is concerned, considering they've lost money every year since 1971?
Yeah, possibly not. And we have to acknowledge when you say Amtrak, we're talking about the United States government, because that is who runs Amtrak. And by the way, I have to say, I think Congressman Israel will be sorry he made those comments.
Hasn't apologized yet.
Yeah, well, it's probably a little too soon, but it was a mistake. We don't know what happened yet, and there are indications that it had nothing to do with investment in, this may turn out to be something actually far worse, and we'll see how that develops. But look, this is a very tricky problem because the train system is important for a number of reasons in this country, whether it be freight trains, whether it be passenger trains. We know that Amtrak has found a way to be profitable in the Northeastern Corridor, which is, as it happens, the section where all this troubles just happened because of the accident.
New York,
Boston,
Philadelphia,
New York,
Washington.
right. It's not profitable in the other parts of the country where it operates. So it's not unreasonable to ask the question, if the government can't operate this profitably, or at least at break even, should those other parts of the system be operating? There's obviously not enough business there to justify it. Right. It's a fair question.
Yeah, I agree. I think this particular incident has nothing to do with the infrastructure problems, and anyone who says that it does is politicizing a tragedy, and it's ridiculous. Even President Obama today in his speech talked a little bit about infrastructure. They are separate issues. This looks like it was a conductor-engineer failure. And
you should just throw in there, though, that had the full system they're deploying been in, it would have been a fail-safe to the conductor. If the conductor made an error, it would have been a fail-safe to that error.
Right, the positive train control that they're talking about.
And
but that is something that's being implemented, and it's not there as a result of money. It's not there as a result of timing. It's just simply a matter of them putting things done in time. Well, there's no indication that it's a matter of not having the money.
Well, no, here's what it is. What Amtrak says, because a lot of it is done, they said it's not done there because they claim because of regulations that they feel have made it too hard,
right.
And an additional $5 billion that's necessary that the government hasn't wanted to share in with them.
Brad, one solution that I heard today was, why not take what we have in airplanes right now, which is a pilot and a co-pilot, and just enact that on trains? Head engineer, co-engineer. So in case one is doing 106 miles per hour, the other one says, that turn's coming up, and it wouldn't cost a lot of money, and it's a solution that could be put in place tomorrow.
That's exactly right. I think it's a very good idea. It could be done. I think the reason it's not done is in part because the country likes having this infrastructure debate and likes imagining that if we threw more money at Amtrak, it would necessarily be safer. It's just not true. Positive train controls, the law of the land, it's going to be fully implemented by 2015, by the end of the year. We're on track, no pun intended, to do that. I think what happened here is, and blaming it on money and spending, is like giving a hungry person $100. They go out and they spend it all on beer and then complain they're hungry and say, you see, if we'd given them $200, they'd be full. Now, that's just not the case. Well, it's true. Medieval monks did call beer liquid bread. They also weren't driving trains 105 miles an hour. I don't think we know yet, but I think that making this about the debate about infrastructure spending, it feels like vultures picking at carcasses.
Infrastructure spending, it should be a debate, maybe not relevant to this.
Now.
Yeah, but it at least provides an opportunity to have a critically important discussion. But Joe, that idea is so good that I'll probably write about it tomorrow and pretend it was mine. It makes a lot of sense what you're suggesting. It's a low-tech solution, but if you got somebody riding shotgun, maybe these things don't happen.
The thing is, every time that you have an issue, you can't then address it just to address that issue. Like, we saw that plane crash. There was a co-pilot in there, and the co-pilot was locked out of the cockpit.
This was not a suicide mission, though.
No,
if
but
you want to crash
there's
something,
always
it's
going
not
to
going
be
to
a
happen.
situation where, but there's always going to be a situation where you can then plug up that problem. But here we know that Amtrak's major area of waste is in their labor. So then to add to that labor, I don't know that that's necessarily. It looks like they're good results.
You probably agree that the 8 families would feel differently today.
No doubt about it. But that is not going to be the answer to the global
You
problem.
can't judge from there. I think one of the issues is we all want it to be safer and better. I think everyone wants that, and it's because there's so much pain in the face of 8 dead and hundreds hurt that we want quick answers. There aren't going to be quick answers. Disciplined answers take time, and that's what I hope we'll give this one. I think Steve Israel did not understand.
How many plane crashes would it have taken for us to figure out, we ought to have a co-pilot in there? And it's a good idea to have a co-pilot in there, even though it didn't.
Yeah, I'm not against it. I don't think you'd have a snap judgment about it.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll be talking more about this in the coming weeks. So coming up next, as the Republican presidential field widens, so does its problems. Stay right there. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the show. So if you're interested in running to be the Republican presidential nominee, it may be time to jump into the race. It seems everyone else has or will at some point. Try to keep count. Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Mike Huckabee, Ben Carson, Marco Rubio, Carly Fiorina have all announced their intentions. Jeb Bush, Scott Walker, Chris Christie, Rick Santorum, Bobby Jindal, or is it Jindal? Lindsey Graham, Rick Perry, and most importantly, the unstoppable juggernaut who is Ohio Governor John Kasich, are most likely to run. To put this all in perspective, as of right now, we are looking at 14 possible candidates, and that number will only get bigger. Look at that. So that's how we envision the debates going if everybody jumps in. And wait till we try to do the math on this. Think about it. If it's a 2-hour debate and you got 14 candidates in between questions and everything else, that will give, and I'm not very good at the whole algebra thing, but I believe about 67 seconds per candidate for the whole damn thing for all of their answers. I'm totally wrong on that, but you get the point.
Actually, they would love that.
They probably would. Can we put that picture up again?
Just look at it.
Because there's somebody missing in that photo. Yeah, there's Fiorina, and there is Huckabee.
Where's
and
Kasich?
Where's John Kasich?
There he is.
Oh, there he is, the big head. Okay, I don't believe he was there the first
big
time.
head. What an Ohioan, baby.
Yeah. See, but that's because he stands above all of the others. So.
Well,
in your mind, at least.
Actually, even with that enlarged head, Trump's head still looks bigger.
That's true. And orange. He doesn't look very happy either, does he?
What a surprise.
Anyway, in 2008, that number stood at 12. And we're still here a year and a half out from the presidential election. Today, we did get news that a certain mustached Reaganite would not be running.
As I look forward, I have decided not to seek the Republican nomination for president. I believe I can make the strongest contribution to our future by continuing as a clear and consistent advocate for a strong Reaganite foreign policy that values peace through strength. I'm also going to focus on the 2016 Republican presidential race to make certain foreign policy is critical to winning the nomination.
I don't think I've seen that very often where somebody announces they're not running.
Right.
And it's not like everybody was clamoring for the John Bolton.
But it's a smaller group than the people who are, so maybe that's why.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's
That's
actually
what's so amazing about this. They're now doing videos to say, we should do one.
Right.
We
That
should
we're
do
all-
it.
We're not running for president.
Speak for yourself. As you can see,
You heard it here first.
Number 20.
No. As you can see, that was former ambassador to the UN, John Bolton. Mr. Bolton would have been the only mustache candidate in the field, as we said. I am sure conservative hipsters are disappointed. Seriously, though, the GOP is loaded with candidates, and they all don't fit in a cookie cutter, typical conservative ideology. Some candidates are more socially conservative than others, some less, some pro-immigration reform, some protectionist, some hawkish, some not, black, white, female, male. Are we seeing a changing Republican Party happening via this primary race? Well, according to the latest Real Clear Politics poll average, Jeb Bush has a 2.5-point lead over Scott Walker and Marco Rubio, while Rand Paul, Mike Huckabee, and the others trail off from there. Why is Kasich highlighted as 2%? He hasn't announced yet. But when he does,
Bush.
That's anyway,
Walker.
Stop making sense. Jeb Bush, obviously the most centrist candidate the GOP has. Today he even said that, knowing that what we know now, he would have never gone to war with Iraq, obviously distancing himself from his brother. Are we seeing a cultural shift to the middle across the nation with these more centrist candidates?
Absolutely not. I mean, there are no centrist candidates so far out of these 97,000 people who have announced or not announced to be to run for
You
president.
don't think
No.
socially liberal? They're more socially centrist.
But, I mean, you can say that Jeb Bush maybe is more moderate because of the stance he's taken on immigration, but Jeb Bush is really very far from moderate. He is a dyed-in-the-wool conservative. I'll give him credit, he can think for himself and reach some conclusions that might vary from the rest of the pack. But no, this is a deeply conservative crowd. The only difference is there's more of them, but there's certainly no. Last time around, you had a John Huntsman. who you could say really was a Republican moderate, and we saw how well that went for him. You have no such thing
Romney
at this
was
point.
somewhat moderate. You could say McCain was somewhat moderate.
Well, Romney could not have done any more to move to the right and stay to the right. There was a time when I would have said that Romney was somewhat moderate when he was governor of Massachusetts, but he certainly wasn't running for president.
Brad, I'm curious, I mean, we were joked about it before, but when you have that many candidates for a debate, the stage, there is no stage big enough. Right. No. So what is the threshold that you would have to hit in order to be part of these debates when the polling we've seen it's tight? I mean, there's really no distance.
Kasich got?
Right.
2 points.
Kasich is irrelevant to this conversation.
I know what you're saying. Look, yes, it's short of having Ringling Brothers come in and do 3-ring circus. We're going to have some kind of minima, and you have to rise above it. And that happened in past debates. The truth is, last time around, it ended up being 2%, and that was after the RNC suggested 3%. And what's interesting is originally the Committee on Debates, nonpartisan organization, originally wanted 15%. So I think what's likely to happen here, if they're smart, they'll figure out some process by which you set a minimum, run multiple debates, and then raise the threshold over the course of the election. So you can get into debate 1 at 3%, but you can't get into debate 2 unless you hit 9%, and eventually get 15%, or whatever the number should be. And by the end, we'll actually have, well, look, it works in sports for a reason.
Right.
Because when you have to impose a discipline where the best rise, and best here is garnering public support, you have a shot.
And whoever it is going to be in such good shape to take on Hillary Clinton, who's not going to be fighting against
I just want to run the pool on this. I want it said here. That's what I want.
We have not addressed the most important question. How many clowns will fit in a clown car?
You know
last word.
There's only 10 buttons on the phone. So for polling, they don't know how they're going to do it with 19 people running.
Right.
Wow,
yeah,
that's an excellent point. You know what they should do? It'd be like the NCAA tournament and the NIT. So if you're below a certain number, you get to go to that other debate. If you win that, maybe you get to the big boy dance. Anyway, coming up next is President Obama's sexist. We've got that next. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to The Wrap. I'm Joe Concha, along with Rick Unger, Heather Hansen, and Brad Hirschfield. Senator Marco Rubio taking on Hillary Clinton on Fox's O'Reilly Factor, where he said this.
Are you going to say that Hillary Clinton's dishonest?
Look, we don't need any drama in the White House. At this incredible hinge moment in our history, you're going to pack in the White House 2 people who have been everywhere they go, bring drama with them. This country cannot afford another 8 years of a soap opera.
Are you going to point out what the dramas are?
Absolutely. We see what they are already.
So you're going to go and say, listen, here, look, I would, if I were running for president, I'd say, listen, I want the FBI to investigate the Clinton Foundation.
Well, her time at the as Secretary of State is now filled with drama.
Mr. Rubio continuing with the whole Clinton drama theme.
The foundation is filled with drama because of ties between the foundation and business deals.
Do you want an FBI investigation into that?
If it's appropriate. First of all,
do you think it's appropriate?
Well, we don't know enough about it yet.
But how are we ever going to know if the FBI doesn't investigate?
Well, ultimately, I think we are going to find out more about these cases. And in particular, well, you know, the House Oversight Committee is looking into the email problems. And from that, I think we'll know a lot more information.
But the House looked at the IRS scandal and couldn't get to first base.
And that's because the Justice Department doesn't want to move forward on it under this president.
Mr. Rubio says no drama in the White House. Brad Hirschfield, can a Clinton presidency be drama-free?
I can't imagine how, although I find the whole thing kind of ironic because we've had no drama Obama for 8 years, and I don't think Rubio is a big fan of the conclusions he's made. I do think it's funny that in this case, the journalist is the one inflaming things, and the politician is the one who has the dignity to say, let's proceed slowly. I think the issue with the drama from the Clintons is that they feel above it all in almost every situation. And I think when you actually are the president, when you are above most things, it's really important to know you're not above the law. You're not above public perception. In fact, the more power you have, the more important that becomes, and that's my problem with the way they do business.
Heather, in terms of being above it all, she appears to be above the press as well. Hasn't answered a question now, any question, for 24 days.
Well, and you see the media really, really getting angry with her. Jake Tapper today mentioned, you know, when she ever answers a question, we'll be able to ask her that. Mika in Morning Joe was talking about her handlers need to let her talk. I mean, she's really doing herself.
Her handlers need to let her talk?
Yeah, that's what
she's not running the campaign?
It is. She's doing herself such a disservice because as soon as she comes out, she now is going to be questioned on everything as opposed to sort of parsing it out and dealing with the good and the bad. Mm-hmm. And as we've seen her husband do not so well after a little break, it really lays a foundation for a very, very uncomfortable first interview for her.
It is telling that the Washington Post which is, no one's going to accuse of being conservative, nor liberal for that matter. They're a very respected paper. Actually has a clock that is keeping track of how many minutes it has been since she's answered a question.
You guys know how sometimes when we're sitting here watching video, I get that smirk on my face that's really annoying to everybody. Yeah. Well, this was one of them. Because as I'm sitting here watching that video, I'm thinking of all the dramas that I know Marco Rubio has in store for him, should anybody decide they want to vote for him. So Senator Rubio, remember this day, because I'm going to. And you too have your dramas coming. It's not just the Clintons.
Wow, Rick, you sounded like Dirty Harry just there.
That's right.
I think he handled that interview extremely well. As Brad said, I mean, he really looked like an elder statesman as opposed to the drama-filled Clintons.
He won't think so in a few months when his dramas come
That wasn't
out.
much of an interview. That was a tennis match where both guys are at the neck going back and forth.
That's actually what it was.
Hey, speaking of the Clintons, ABC's George Stephanopoulos apologizing today for not disclosing to ABC or his viewers that he gave $75,000 to the Clinton Foundation. That's $25,000 each year. As you may know, George was an aide in the Clinton White House, that was him way back when, and says he will not moderate an ABC debate. But he will continue to cover the 2016 election. For ABC's part, they have decided to take no disciplinary actions. Rick, was this a simple mistake, and should ABC allow Stephanopoulos to continue to cover the Clintons?
Well, it's obviously you can't cover the election without covering the Clintons, at least at this point. Look, it was probably silly. What really does bother me about all of this, the Clinton Foundation, prior to Hillary running and all of this stuff coming out in the book, it does really good work, and it really is.
That's not what we're talking about.
No, I do understand that. I do, and I'm not ignoring the point. I just do want to say though that it's kind of a shame, because maybe she shouldn't have run for president, because what the foundation does is probably more of an influence in the world than she might be.
Would you have suspended Stephanopoulos just because when he interviews a Peter Schweitzer, who is calling the Clinton Foundation, the foundation he
has put
money into, and didn't disclose before that interview, saying, by the way, I donated. There has to be some sort of disciplinary action here by ABC, and I'm shocked they're saying
no, they're removing him. You could certainly argue it's not enough, but they're removing him from moderating the debates, which is not a small thing for a journalist.
Sure,
but
if he was picked in the first place.
But I take your point. I'm not going to sit here and vehemently argue against you, because I get it.
He was just on The Daily Show weeks ago, asked about the Clinton Foundation, didn't say there that he donated, and also said, and I'm paraphrasing, something about some people may expect a quid pro quo. I mean, that's a problem.
Quickly, Brad.
Yeah, it's just, you gotta come clean about this stuff. It's always the denial afterwards that's worse than the original sin. It was 3 gifts. He didn't forget. He made a decision. This guy's like a child of the Clintons. He spent most of his adult life with them. He can't be covering them that way. It's just not right.
That'll be the last word on that. Coming up next, is President Obama sexist? We'll tell you who thinks so and why after the break. Stay right there. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown calling the President of the United States sexist after dismissing Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren in a dispute over the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade agreement. The President and the possible 2016 presidential hopeful have been openly arguing over the agreement, specifically Mr. Obama's decision to fast-track it. In an interview with Yahoo News last week, the President said Senator Warren, or rather Elizabeth, is, quote, absolutely wrong on the trade deal, and called her, quote, a politician like everybody else. After the Senate defeated the trade bill on Tuesday, Senator Brown said that perhaps the president would have preferred to the senator by her first name if she were a man. The president of the National Organization of Women, here we go, Terry O'Neill, says the president's comments were an attempt to convince us that the senator shouldn't be taken seriously, but in a sexist way, saying, quote, the little lady just doesn't know what she's talking about. Press Secretary Josh Earnest went on Morning Joe to defend the president.
There's one Democratic Senator, Sherrod Brown, who was saying it was a little disrespectful. Did the president perhaps overplay a little bit? Would he have spoken about another senator this way?
Mika, I can give you all the references of the president referring to his former colleagues in the Senate by their first name. And the fact is Senator Warren actually used to work for the president here in the administration. So the president has a personal relationship with Senator Warren. It's not surprising that he would call her by her first name the same way that he calls other senators by their first name.
Okay, so let's go to the lady on the panel.
It is.
Should I call you Ms. Hansen, or
my
can I call you
gosh.
Heather?
You may call me
can we
Heather.
just call you sir?
You can call me whatever the heck you want, but this is absolutely asinine. It is ridiculous.
Can we say that on this?
I don't know. I just did. I just did because that is what it is. You know, it reminds me of when Senator Durbin said that we were putting Loretta Lynch in the back of the bus. That was not racism. This is not sexism. This is politics. These are human beings. The fact that he worked with these people and was their colleague and calls both men and the senators. Well, again, yes.
Because that sounds pretty racist to me. See, we could do this all day.
Right.
That's right. And it is it is a disservice to women, just as it is a disservice to people of other races, what we call racism, when it's not. This is absolutely ridiculous, and it's not sexism, and anyone that says that it is being asinine. I'll say it again.
Welcome to, this is a new Heather. It's
good.
This one really got you riled up.
Oh, it's crazy.
Welcome to 2015 America, Brad, where everybody's a little too sensitive.
Well, I don't think it's just they're too sensitive. I think this is what goes on in a culture. When no one's ever wrong, they're a liar. No one ever calls me by their first name, they're a sexist. No one is ever allowed to just say, you know what, you can be Sherrod Brown and say, I want the president's deal, I believe in the president's deal, and I'm upset he didn't get his deal. Calling him a racist, a sexist, see, they're equally absurd. And that's what's completely crazy. And by the way, the president of now should appreciate, it's also why now is shrinking appeal among younger women. Because younger women, because of the successes of the feminist movement, don't walk around angry looking for a target constantly. And she is, and actually what she did there was alienate her base. So everyone loses in this one.
You got the smile going again.
What they said. What they said. They got it exactly right. I'm really surprised in Sherrod Brown. Sherrod's a good guy, and he's not given to saying stupid things. Very sensible fellow. I don't know what he was thinking. Nothing sounded sexist about it to me. You know, just because people disagree in politics doesn't mean they're not friends. And you know, I mean, maybe Elizabeth Warren would not call the president Barack on camera. He's the president. Bet you she calls him that when they're sitting in a room together. Yeah. So,
do you think so?
Yeah.
Or do you think they still go the Mr. President route?
From what I know, that he is not uncomfortable being called Barack.
Really?
Yes, by his friends.
Do you think that the senator will apologize?
No.
Yeah,
because they asked him to, and he kind of blew it off.
Right, he blew it off.
Now
I think he understands that by not apologizing, he's contributing to a poisonous political atmosphere. He thinks he's defending someone. He's not. He's poisoning the waters for everyone by casting these kind of aspersions.
So this trade agreement will probably pass because it's going to be fast track.
Not
right?
the trade agreement. Yeah, it's the fast track.
That's the issue.
Right.
Doesn't mean the trade agreement.
But I don't want it to. I want this debate to go on for weeks, because the entertainment factor here right now, as far as Democrats attacking the president and vice versa, we've never seen this in 6 years. Not like this.
Not like
just not in recent memory, but don't worry, I don't think it's going to pass so fast. Fast track will, I don't know if the agreement will, so you'll get plenty of circus yet to come.
I take you back to December of 2010, when the Democrats were not happy with this president when he traded away the Bush tax cut revision so poor people could actually eat over Christmas.
You didn't see sexist, and you didn't see all these. It was just different. It's a bizarre world, Heather.
Well, it definitely is. It's politics at its finest, because you're really seeing the personalities of the players, and when they get insulted, they go for the low blow. It's not like this ridiculous thing.
You mean they're just like us?
Yes, and that's right. Yeah. Humans. They're all humans. Not sexist, not racist, just humans.
I think what this shows is that Elizabeth Warren would not be a very good general election candidate, because if she's, this sensitive over things like
this.
We don't know if it's
She's never said a word. To be fair.
I don't think it is
fair.
She never.
I don't know if it is or it isn't, but we don't know. I think this was Sherrod Brown.
But she could have stepped. No. She could have stepped forward and said, "Guys, this is ridiculous.
Right.
Nothing was sexist. I understand what he meant." Right?
And she should.
You're absolutely right. She should.
Anyway, it's all asinine, no matter how you put it. Anyway, potluck time next. Brad and I go back in a moment. And welcome back to the Daily Wrap. It's potluck time. This is a part of the show. We go around the table, share our favorite stories of the day. And if you wear blue, it's your cue.
I don't have a story today.
Really?
No.
Bradley does.
You got me. It's blue, but I don't wear it as well as you, so I would have defaulted to you also.
We always go together, so that was by default. My bad. Go ahead, Brad.
No worries. I bring you the story of overwhelming Republican support in the Congress, along with all of Congress, by a more than 4-to-1 margin of restricting the NSA's ability to gather information. And for me, this is a really troubling thing, because they named the bill which they passed, the USA Freedom Act. and I think are making a very dangerous confusion between freedom and liberty. The Freedom Act is going to replace the Patriot Act and will massively restrict data collection. It does it because presumably the people who oppose the data collection want personal freedom. Well, here's the thing. Personal freedom is sacred, and it should be. But in a war against terrorism, you don't fight with just personal freedom. It's a war for liberty, and it requires national action. So as much as people may be concerned about individual liberties being eroded a little bit in a war against a massive enemy, I think we're trading patriotism and liberty for small-scale freedom, and that's a very bad and dangerous trade. I get it. You got a gun at home, you can kill a terrorist if they come through the door, but you can't kill terrorism one person at a time. And what worries me is that the impulse toward this new Freedom Act that will restrict the NSA is that in the name of something really well-intentioned, we're making a very big mistake.
The whole name thing, and that's a tremendous argument. One's the Patriot Act, so then the other one's the Freedom Act. It just sounds so similar. Who comes up with these names? Is there a guy that thinks these things up?
Those are very creative.
They're not at all.
Well, as a rule, they tend to mean the opposite of whatever they're selling,
Yeah.
and I think that was not true as much of the Patriot Act. With the Freedom Act, it's the opposite. There's a real confusion here. There's a fundamental mistake, and I think you see it in the weird bedfellows that have been created from the ACLU that was opposed to the NSA and further right Republicans who make this about personal liberty. At some point, your individual rights are part of something larger called this country that we share. And I think that's a mistake.
Where the argument gets difficult is what you characterize as a small trade-off, right?
Someone else calls a big one.
Somebody else would call a big one. And what I'm always mindful of, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but what I'm always mindful of, we have this tendency when we get frightened to lose perspective on what exactly is it that we're trying to defend. Because
that's exactly right.
You know, traditionally
you win
in this
the battle
country,
to lose
it's
the
been
war
more
of what we're
about just our present lives. It's about what we stand for in this country, and when you see that erode, that's trouble.
I think that's right, and that's why the liberty issue is really important. But that's why it'd also be helpful if the people opposing the NSA data gathering actually had information to support why they're opposed to it. It turns out in the Senate, which has no interest in this, they actually think we need that gathering, and they're getting better briefings from the NSA than the House.
Right.
So that tells you something.
That tells you something indeed. Now I'm going to tell you something because it's my turn. Conan O'Brien did a tremendous skit just last week on who he would cast to play certain presidential contenders and candidates, and we have the tape.
Well, the 2016 presidential election is already such a big story. Get this, TBS is making a made-for-TV movie about it. I got a sneak peek at the casting. I want to share it with you right now. Texas Governor Rick Perry will be played by Josh Brolin's mugshot. Yeah. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham will once again be played by Carol Brady. We're all happy about that. Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton will be played by David Spade. That makes sense. And finally, New Jersey Governor Chris Christie will be played by Mama June from Honey Boo Boo.
You can see that coming from about a mile away. But Spade with Hillary.
Yeah. Perfect. Separated at birth.
That's good. That's good casting, no question. And it made me wonder who would play us, our wonderful Daily Rap panel, if they made a movie about the show. So let's start off with Rick first. Who would play Rick? Let's see. Of course! It's Jerry Springer.
I get that a lot.
That makes sense. A Tanner Rick, and that completely works. All right. Heather Hansen. Jenny Garner.
That's not bad. I'll take that.
Interesting real picture.
I wanted the Daredevil Jenny picture, but they wouldn't allow it for the FCC, some sort of violation. And Mr. Hirschfield, who would play him? Of course!
Of course.
It's Saul from Homeland. And he was also
smoked it out.
Yes, exactly. I mean, the resemblance is overwhelming there. If you get the dark glasses, you'd be all set.
I actually get stopped about once a week.
Yeah.
And people, so I've come to appreciate it. I hate looking over here. I don't like pictures of myself, but I get it. You got it. Good.
Wow. You looked a lot different in Princess Bride. That's for sure.
Well, the years have been hard on me.
Prepare to die. And how about Conch? What about me? I'll speak in the third person because I can get away with it. Of course.
Yeah.
That's
So
right.
could you find a worse picture of me, by the way, to put up onto the left, guys? My God.
Picture of everybody.
Wait, which one's me again? Very hard. The guy on the right has won 3 majors in golf. That is Patty Harrington. And I used him as my Facebook picture for 2 years, and not one person questioned it. It's a true story, my friends will tell you. Anyway, when we come back, it's yay or nay. This is the Daily Wrap. Stay right there. And it's happy time, people. Welcome back to the Daily Wrap. It's time for yay or nay. First up, unlike many celebrities in Beverly Hills, one California car wash is taking the drought restrictions in their home state very seriously. Echo Green Auto Cleaning Car Wash in Redwood City, California, is washing their customers' cars with only 1 cup of water. The business already uses greener methods to wash cars, but has vowed to limit its water usage during the drought. This green car wash may sound great, but it'll set you back about $35. So is it worth the price? Rick, you own 7 cars. Would you take one of them there?
Well, I can tell you that any car wash in Southern California costs roughly $35, so that's no big shakes. And I'm a little bit confused how we got from Beverly Hills to Redwood City. They are hours apart. They're nowhere near each other.
It's a very good point. We'll talk to the writers.
All that said, yeah, I would do that. Sure.
Yeah, it's amazing they're able to take 1 cup and go that far. Would you pay
I would do it too. I very rarely get my car washed, so that would be better than what I do now.
Yours looks like the one that Eddie
It's
Murphy
bad.
wrote in Beverly
It's
Hills.
bad. My old Toyota RAV4 is very dirty.
Yes, Bradley.
I'm a yay also because I wouldn't be doing it much, so $35 twice a year, no problem.
It's amazing. You got to figure a lot of businesses, car washes, are going out of business in California because people are very serious indeed. There were ample vandalism and looting in Baltimore during the chaos following the death of 25-year-old Freddie Gray. But this story is a little different, considering who the criminals are. Tamika Cobb and Kendra Richards, 2 Baltimore City correctional officers, have been suspended and charged with theft and 2 counts of burglary after robbing a 7-Eleven store. The heist included Slim Jims and Tostitos, all caught on video. Given their occupation and the nature of the robbery, should these officers be fired instead of just suspended, Brad?
You know, from a legal standpoint, I don't know, but from an ethical standpoint, it sure seems that way. Though that said, at the right time of night for Tostitos, Lord knows what I would do. So I don't know, but I gotta say yes.
That makes a good point, Heather.
Yeah, I mean, listen, legally they're off their job time, but I think it's absolutely ridiculous, and it's sort of indicative of the bigger problem in Baltimore.
Indeed.
Actually, the whole Doritos thing, they're just shooting the commercial for next year's Super Bowl, so they can be
Allie Landry.
in the competition. Yeah,
I didn't even know they still made Slim Jims.
She can stay. Slim Jims, you're out of there.
All right, so you're fine. No termination.
No, they should go. They should be fired.
Okay, very good. It's been the fodder of many sci-fi thrillers, but Stephen Hawking, just nominated, well, not him, but a movie about him, has a dire warning for U.S. computers. Will they surpass human intelligence in the next 100 years? Not just U.S. computers, but everywhere. The warning came while Hawking spoke at a conference in London where he urged those in attendance to, quote, make sure the computers have goals aligned with ours. Should we have oversight and regulations in place for artificial intelligence development? Yay or nay, Heather Hansen?
Yes, absolutely.
You think they could take over and kill us like in Terminator?
I think that better safe than sorry.
Yeah, it's a good point. Good point. You're all for regulation.
Well, and it's 100 years, so I really don't give a damn. But
Wow, how morbid.
I will use that to make sure my grandkids study even harder in school, so that they're very smart.
So they can stay ahead of the robots. I'm a little concerned about over-regulating research, but I do think the line between what's human and what's machine is going to merge increasingly. It may be good in some cases. It clearly will be. It may be a little problematic in others. 100 years is a long time.
Yeah, it's amazing. If you go to Drudge, every day there's a story about how robots will kill us all one day. He's got a fascination with it.
I didn't say that. I said merging human and
machine.
machine.
No, I'm saying Drudge is saying
clear. They stimulated that thought, but you're right.
People are reading those stories because he has one up every day. It's amazing. Anyway, many little girls want to be princesses, but one father is going the distance to make sure his little girl's dream comes true. Virginia farmer Jeremiah Heaton, there he is, has started a crowdfunding page so he could buy a piece of unclaimed land in North Africa that he plans to name the Kingdom of North Sudan and make his daughter, Emily, a real princess. Heaton actually has legitimate plans for his little country by making it a nation fully dedicated to coming up with solutions for food shortages. Disney has even purchased the rights to the story and plans to make the movie, they're aptly titled, The Princess of North Sudan. Does this guy, besides me, deserve to be Father of the Year? Rick?
I love this guy. I wish I had thought of it first.
Heather?
I think it's great. Go for it.
Very
I
good.
think it's
Brad?
sweet. I got 3 daughters. I get it.
You have 3.
Yep.
Oh, good for you. Good for you, Saul. Anyway, thank you, panel, for joining us. I appreciate it. Coming up next, we have Newsmax Prime with J.D. Hayworth. Remember, it's been 24 days since Hillary Clinton has answered a question from the press. Night, night.